Hi. Can you hear me, Mom?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Well, welcome.
I wasn't sure if it was a scam or it was really you.
No, it's really me. So I'm doing this every Wednesday. So last Wednesday I interviewed my friend Jeff Morgan, who has Covenant Wines up in Berkeley, and he talked about his story of going from being a jazz musician and the orchestra leader for the Prince of Monaco to being a kosher winemaker. So, and I'm doing this one. I don't have a guest this week. I'm going to be talking about um, an idea from my book. And then next week, I don't remember who my guest is next week, but um, I know I have guests for the next 3 weeks booked, and more people after that. So let's see. I'm going to go ahead and get started, and so I'm going to be recording this. So for all of you who may be watching live streaming on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter or YouTube, welcome to The Way to Wow, People Making Money. So this time each week, we talk about effective and remarkable ways that you can make a living. So that may be in a particular job, or it may be starting a business, either way. And although typically I will have a guest like I did last week, if you logged in right on time, you heard me talking to my mom is on live with me today. You heard me talking about my guest last week, Jeff Morgan, who's the founder and owner of, with his wife Jody, of Covenant Wines. So this week I'm going to do a solo session because I realized in talking with Jeff that there's a fundamental concept underlying the idea of not only just making money, which there's lots of ways to make money, but making money in a way that will be satisfying, that will be enjoyable, and that also will, I think, do more for you than merely putting dollars in the bank. I think, especially, so for those of you who are in the military, I saw this quite a bit when I coached folks coming off of active duty who were going into civilian life. And military service for many people is a very meaningful job to have, over and above whatever financial compensation there is. And when service members come to civilian life, oftentimes what they find they miss most is that part of what they were doing, that sense that there's something bigger going on than merely making money. So I think that's an important aspect of the whole idea of people making money. So like I said at the beginning, there's lots of ways to do that, but I think it's best if we can do it in a, I know this is a word we hear bandied about a lot, but a sustainable way, meaning in a way that you can embrace, that we can embrace, and really have it be a meaningful part of our lives. So back in 2017, I wrote a book called the 8 Deadly Sins of Job Hunting. It was for the military people that I was coaching at the time. It was subtitled 5 Steps to Finding a Job You'll Love. And it was a step-by-step, task-by-task process to help people get a job. And because what I found through my coaching was people knew certain parts, or they could do certain parts well, but there were other parts that they were leaving out. And oftentimes the things they were leaving out were the most important parts. So things like understanding the culture of a company before you decide that's where you want to work. So I have a friend who very badly wants to go to work for one of the big tech companies, Apple or Facebook or whatever. And I was talking to her about that. And I said, do you really think the culture of these companies is something you're going to like? And funny enough, she said, no, but I want to work there anyway. It's like, okay. I mean, look, each of us are going to have our goals. We're going to have what we want to do. I think I understand why she wants to pursue a job at a company she doesn't like, or at a company whose culture she's pretty sure she's not going to like. What are you going to do? There's different motivations, but I think that, understanding the environment in which we're going to be working is very, very important to finding a way for us to make money that we'll enjoy and it will be meaningful. So another area that I find people often overlook is the whole idea of networking, of making contacts. So, you might have gone to a networking event at some point in your life, and it seems like the idea of a networking event is to collect as many business cards as you possibly can, right? And there are people who advocate that particular process. I do not. I think that the most important thing you can do at a networking event, because especially if it's a face-to-face networking event, which is really the best kind, is to make some kind of substantial connection with people that you're meeting, so that they will want to continue to get to know you. So the problem with collecting a lot of business cards is you have no idea whether any of those people are ones who are going to want to keep in touch with you and build a relationship with you afterwards. So, are you better off collecting, 50 business cards and finding out that, 4 people maybe at best want to establish a relationship with you, and having to sift through all those 50 potential contacts to find those 4? Or are you better off taking your time at the event to really connect with 5 to 10 people that as you leave the event, with their business card in your hand, or with your virtual business card on your phone, that when you call them, they're going to take your call and want to speak to you? And I would suggest that the latter is much better. So those are the kind of things that I talk about in my book. What we're going to talk about today is something I call your unique value proposition. So I mentioned this a little bit last week when I was talking to Jeff. And while I don't think that, Jeff had intentionally developed his unique value proposition, what I do think is that he understood, maybe intuitively, what the different aspects of it are. So, and he combined them effectively so that he's always able to do what he really wants to do, what he's really enjoyed, has been passionate about. And I think that really is the key to Jeff's success. So I'm going to screen share with you here so you can see the graphic that I developed for this. Or maybe I'm not. Let's see if this is going to come up. No. Well, let's see. Nope, don't worry about that. This always was a simple thing to do before, but maybe not. Well, let's just try this. Okay. See, technology is a great thing when it works, and when it doesn't, it is not so great. Let's see what this is going to do here. Let's try this once more. Whiteboard. Well, you know what? Let's just try and do a whiteboard. Oh, it still doesn't want to do it. Something about privacy. Okay. Security and privacy. Probably could not. Okay, preference. Okay, well, you know what? Rather than fool around with that and waste a lot of time, I'm gonna. Unfortunately, I can't. The graphic won't come up, but hopefully you can visualize it in your mind. It's actually a pretty simple graphic. So when we talk about a unique value proposition, really what it comes down to is understanding three aspects of what it is you want to do and what it is you may be able to do. Okay, so it starts out typically with understanding your skills, your experience, and your knowledge, or your knowledge, experience, and sorry, your skills, knowledge, and experience is probably a better order for things. Okay, so whether you're just starting out in your professional life, whether you've had a long career, whether you're getting toward the end of it, all of us have skills, knowledge, and experience that has value in the job marketplace or in an entrepreneurial setting. Okay, so the key though is to understand how you find what those are. Okay, and I'm going to talk about that in a couple of minutes after I review each of the three elements briefly. Okay, so the first one is understanding your skills, knowledge, and experience. The second one is you want to understand what it is you like to do, you enjoy doing, or you have passion about, or you love doing. Look, sometimes getting to the level of love doing it or being passionate about doing it, like I love to eat chocolate. Okay, I have not found the job yet, right, where people will pay me to eat chocolate. Although I know those jobs do exist. I've read about people whose entire professional career is getting paid to eat chocolate. So it may not be something exactly that we're passionate about, but hopefully it will be something actually that we actually like doing. Okay, so that's kind of, I would say that's kind of the minimum level we want to get to on that second element, something you like doing. Okay, and the third one is something for which there is demand in the marketplace. Okay, so in other words, there are companies, individuals out there that will pay you for what it is you want to do. Okay, so if you think about it, and I'm gonna look at the graphic even though you can't see it. So if you've got the skills, knowledge, and experience to do something, and you have passion for it, but there's no market demand, you have a really great hobby, right? Right, and that's what chocolate is for me. Chocolate is probably my biggest hobby these days. Okay, if you have skills and knowledge and experience to do something, and there's market demand for it, but you don't enjoy doing it, or you don't have passion for it, you've got a job you're not going to like. You're going to be bored, or you're just going to end up really disliking the job. It's going to be drudgery going and doing the job or running that business every day. Okay, and if there's market demand for it, and you really enjoy, or you think you really will enjoy doing something, a particular job or having a particular kind of business, but you don't have the skills, knowledge, and experience, so you're unqualified, and you're probably really going to struggle to be successful in your chosen field, right? So we need to have all three of those: skills, knowledge, and experience is one. The second is an enjoyment of or a passion for whatever it is we want to do. And third is market demand. So if you think of each of those as a circle overlapping, where all three overlap is sort of a triangle with rounded sides, That is your unique value proposition. That's the point where you can say to a potential employer, look, I can do this job. I know I'm going to really enjoy doing this job, and you need someone to do the job. That's why it's a job opening, right? It has all three elements. And so, I'm the person for you to fill this job. That's what you're looking to be able to do. All right. So now, having sketched the broad strokes of a unique value proposition, let's go back now and look at each of those elements in greater detail. Okay. So first of all, let's talk about skills, experience, skills, knowledge, and experience. Right. So perhaps you are a recent college graduate. You say, well, I've got some knowledge. Okay, I got knowledge in college. Oh gosh, that's a terrible rhyme. Anyway, so I got some knowledge from my classes. Maybe let's say you have a business degree, right? So you got some knowledge there. Okay, good. But the reality is, you almost for sure have other knowledge that has value in the marketplace. So did you babysit when you were a teenager? And you say, well, yeah, but what kind of knowledge did I get there? Well, I don't know. If your babysitting experience was like mine, you got knowledge in how to manage difficult people. Because let's face it, tired, hungry children are difficult people to manage. Okay. And so, if you did a lot of babysitting, and you with a wide variety of children, okay, so you have significant knowledge about how to manage those, those difficult people, right? And while I don't want to say that your coworkers are, are going to be children, I don't mean it like that, but you know what? Even when adults are, tired and hungry, we can be a little bit cranky. So that kind of knowledge, how did you deal with, children? Can that be adapted to how you might deal with your coworkers if you were in some kind of supervisory role or some kind of management role? Okay. So I would think, think as broadly as you can. So if you babysat for 3 or 4 years, you've got 3 or 4 years of knowledge under your belt on how to deal with challenging people. Okay. So your knowledge is more broad-based than just formal education. You've learned in other arenas, and I would encourage you to think about all the other places where you may have gained knowledge that you can then use as proof that you can do a particular job. Okay, so that's kind of the knowledge portion of it. Now let's look at the skills portion. Again, we tend to think of skills as, okay, well, I went to a training program. So, maybe I took you took a program in, I don't know, woodworking, right? And you really, you're interested in getting into carpentry or cabinetry or something like that. Okay, well, so good. So you've got you got trained in the skills for that, and it's there. But the reality is too, you have probably gained skills from a lot of other things that you've done that are valuable in the marketplace. So were you in some kind of youth group as a young person, the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, 4-H, all of these kinds of organizations? They teach a wide variety of skills. And those skills oftentimes have value in the marketplace. And let me give you an example of where that's recognized. So if you are an Eagle Scout, okay, you got that top rank in the Boy Scouts, and you join the United States military, you're, as an enlisted person, you don't have to join as an E1, which is the lowest enlisted rate that exists. I believe they take you in as an E3, right? So you're jumping 2 levels, not merely because it's a lot of hard work to become an Eagle Scout, but because you're an Eagle Scout, the military recognizes that you have a certain skill level and knowledge level as well that's valuable in the military. Okay. And depending on who the employer is, the same may be true for a private employer as well. So you may, now for an employer who doesn't particularly value, your being an Eagle Scout, just an Eagle Scout, you can still break down the kind of skills that you learned in scouting that could potentially be valuable to that particular employer. Okay, let's say you played in some kind of youth sports league. Same thing. Maybe you played football, baseball, lacrosse, tennis. All of these sports taught you a lot of skills. Okay. And when I say skills, by the way, I mean that very broadly in the sense of not just skills, but also sort of character traits. So, for example, if you were a competitive tennis player, you probably have learned to be very self-disciplined. So you say, well, self-discipline isn't a skill. Well, that's true, but it's a character trait, and in today's job market, a very valuable character trait. Okay, especially on a first job where, frankly, expectations can be pretty low for entry-level jobs, like showing up on time, right? So if you were on a not a professional, if you were on a school sports team or a youth league sports team, you had to learn just basic skills of showing up on time, being prepared, working hard, understanding teamwork. Okay, maybe not on a tennis. Tennis obviously is a solo sport, so maybe that doesn't contribute to teamwork, or maybe it does. Maybe you played on a tennis team. I played on a tennis team when I was in junior high school, right? And believe me, what I learned was teamwork, because mostly I had to sit out the matches because I was a horrible tennis player, right? So those kinds of activities also have helped you build skills. Now, by the way, you may have done some of those kind of activities as an adult or as a young adult. Same thing goes. You may have hobbies, sports leagues you've been involved with, all of those kind of things. You may have done volunteer work, okay, that you didn't get paid for, but you may have worked with a nonprofit. Maybe you were on a nonprofit board, or you were a volunteer for a nonprofit. All of these experiences taught you or helped you gain skills that may have value in the marketplace. They may have value for an employer that you're talking to, and may help you get a job or even start a business at a level higher than you might have thought you otherwise could. Right? So maybe as an adult, maybe you coached a team in a youth sport league. Well, that's tremendous. You have coaching ability, team building ability, right? Organizational ability, all of those things. Maybe you didn't have to use those so much in a job you had, but if you've been coaching a youth team for maybe 3-4 years, you've got a lot of experience in those fields, and you can transfer that over to your job hunt or to your desire to start a business. So again, as you look at your skills, I encourage you to be as broad thinking about them as you possibly can be when you do what's called a skills assessment. Okay, and there are people out there who help people do that. If you choose to work with such a person, great. I honestly can't make any recommendations for that. And I will, I'll hopefully remember to mention this again at the end of the broadcast today, but I'm happy to give anybody who watches this show a free PDF copy of my book. And in my book, it explains how to do a skills assessment, and it talks in even greater depth than I'm doing right now on how you can do that. It also has forms that you can use to make it easier to put all this down in writing, because in the end, that's the best way to do it, is to put it down in writing so you can see it, you can look at it, and really get a good sense of what are my skills. Okay, what is my knowledge? What are my skills? Okay. So then finally, you want to look at experience. Okay. And all the things that I've said over the last few minutes about knowledge and skills applies to experience as well. So obviously, any paid job you have, that's job experience. Okay. I think we all understand that.
You're talking about relationships.
So you also have experience. You may also gained experience through other kinds of things. Again, working with a nonprofit or working for a nonprofit, coaching a team or being a part of a team. You may have even gained some experience while you were in school. So were you an aide to a professor when you were in school? So you gained experience in organization, in evaluation. All of those kinds of things can add up to your experience. Maybe you did some volunteer teaching or some volunteer training. Okay, well, that's very valuable, because again, once we get out of sort of the sort of lowest tier entry level jobs and into jobs that require us to supervise or manage other people's, one of the most valuable skills we can have is the ability to train and coach other people, right? So while you may not have done that professionally yet, you may have done it in some other context. And then so you can take that experience and transfer it over into your professional life. So let me give you an example. One of the military people I coached was an information technology specialist in the Navy. And when we started talking, what he really wanted to do was get a job at one of the big tech companies. And he was looking at very, very entry level positions, despite the fact that he was at a pretty a sort of upper mid-level position, enlisted position in the Navy. So I asked him, why are you going for such junior positions when you're at a much higher position in the Navy? And he said, well, but I mean, I wasn't an officer and I wasn't a chief petty officer. I said, well, that's true, but you were a petty officer first class. You were, one step away from being a chief petty officer. I said, you must have supervised somebody. And he said, well, I mean, not officially. I said, well, okay, but what about unofficially? He said, well, yeah, of course, I was the first class. So he supervised people all the time, right? And I said, you must have trained people. He said, well, I was never a designated trainer. It's like, gotcha. Right? In the military, for those of you who don't know, like everything, there's designations for this and that. It's a very, very, formalized situation. But the reality is a lot of informal things go on as well. And he had a tremendous experience training people, right? That's as a first-class petty officer, more of your time is spent training and teaching sailors that are junior to you than it is actually doing the work, because you're being prepared to become a chief petty officer, where that's essentially all you do, right? So after we talked about those kind of things for a while, he was able to redo his resume and, more importantly, reframe his perspective on himself. And he ended up getting a job at one of the big tech companies. And I think he started at low six figures, like $110,000 a year, I think it was. He was just blown away that he was able to take the experiences he had working, even though they weren't formal from his standpoint, and use that to get not just a job at the company that he really liked working for, but at a much higher level than he thought, right? And the point of the story is not, oh, well, Kevin coached this guy to, blah, blah, blah. No. All I did was help him open up his eyes a little bit. You can do this for yourself, right? It just takes kind of really digging in. What did I actually do? Forget what you were called or whatever title you might have had. That's not nearly as important as the activities that you actually did in whatever jobs you've had, in whatever volunteer positions you've had, in whatever, academic experiences you've had. What you've done, that's the key. And I would encourage you to focus on that and write those things down. Okay. So that's the first part of your unique value proposition, your knowledge, skills, and experience. And they all come down to doing this sort of skills assessment. And again, I use that word skills in a very broad way. So I would start there. That's the most concrete thing that you can develop. And therefore, it's something you can dig into right away and get yourself thinking in this unique value proposition mode. Okay, so that's the first thing. All right. Now, the second thing I talked about is finding something that you like. Okay, and I kind of joked around. I like to eat chocolate, right? I mean, for anyone who knows me. I really like to eat chocolate, right? I mean, it's really is a deep, deep passion of mine. If you were to look in my kitchen, you would see a cart with 4 or 5 of those slide out baskets in it, and they're all filled with chocolates that I've gotten in my quest to try, every type of kosher chocolate that exists in the world, right? So, I mean, honestly, I would love to get a job working in chocolate. It's a deep passion of mine, and I'm still trying to figure out how to do that. So one of the things I'm looking at is maybe working with some chocolatiers, taking my knowledge, skills, and experience to help them expand their businesses, right? And then they'll give me free chocolate. That seems like a good trade-off to me, for sure, right? So when we think about, well, what is it I really like to do? I wouldn't hesitate to be a little bit fanciful, to be a little bit sort of dreamy almost. I mean, another one of my passions is reading. I love to read, right? It's all rainy out here in Los Angeles right now. There's nothing better on a rainy day than to light a fire in the fireplace, have a nice glass of wine and a good book, right? But again, I don't know of any job that will pay me to do that. But I'm definitely passionate about reading. So what are you passionate about? What do you really like to do? Like, do you like to drive? Right? There's lots of jobs out there that involve driving, right? So long haul truckers are in huge demand right now. You say, I can't be a long haul trucker. Well, I don't know. If you love to drive, why not? They make really good money, right? And for the most part, you don't have someone looking over your shoulder while you're driving a big rig coast to coast or something like that, right? So, again, I would encourage you to really broaden your perspective. Think about the experiences that you've had in your life that were most fulfilling, most enjoyable. That when you think about happy times you've had in your life. These are the kinds of things that you did, okay? And make a list of them. One good way to do this is go somewhere away from all the family responsibilities, all of the craziness of everyday life, maybe someplace quiet, maybe out in nature. Bring yourself a notebook, maybe bring your headphones. You can listen to some music that you find inspiring, and just let maybe walk and let your mind kind of free flow. I mean, I do this when I run. I just sort of turn my mind onto just automatic and just let the thoughts come. Okay. And oftentimes that's when I get some of my, best ideas or deepest insights into whatever it is I'm working on. So I would encourage you to figure that out. Maybe go take a bike ride, something like that. Oftentimes movement gets us thinking in a different way than when we're, sitting at a desk or sitting at a table or something. Okay. Talk to people who know you well and ask them, what is it you think I really like to do? Right? Because one of the things that we do about things we like is we tend to talk about them. But since we talk about them all the time, we don't necessarily perceive it that that's what it's about. But the people we talk to, especially if it's something they hear about from us all the time, that's what they remember about us. right? So I was just going back to my whole example about chocolate. You talk to any of my friends, say, what does Kevin like? Chocolate. They'll say it like right off the top there, chocolate or whiskey. Those will be the two things they say, right? So talk to people who know you well. Ask them, what do you find really kind of turns me on? What are the kind of things that I like? What do I like to do? What do I like to be involved with? Okay, and get them to be as specific as you can. The more detailed you can be, the better. Okay, so maybe I don't want to make this a political thing. Maybe you're passionate about politics. Well, okay, great, but let's dig below the surface of that. What is it about politics that you're passionate about? Is it the issues? Is it the sort of press and give and take and push and pull of the negotiations of politics? Is it the opportunity to help other people? Is it the opportunity to create a legacy? Really, what is it about politics that really, that really kind of sparks your interest, right? And it could be more than one thing, of course. Okay, so rather than staying on the surface and saying, well, this is what interests me. So I'll use chocolate. What interests me about chocolate? Well, obviously the taste, right? Chocolate is delicious to eat, but there's a whole gestalt to chocolate, where it's grown, how it's grown, the people involved in growing it, what their lives are like, how it gets from where it's grown to where it's manufactured, why it's typically manufactured someplace different than where the cacao is grown, and then how that manufacturing process works, the different steps of it, and how that yields chocolate that tastes different, feels different on the tongue. All of these things I find fascinating. So it's more than just I have a fascination for chocolate. It's all these little things that go into it. Okay, so for whatever your interests are, once you've figured out what they are, then start breaking them down, if you can, into components and figure out what are the components that really fascinate me. Okay, and then because the components may apply to another type of job or a different type of business that you'll find that you like a lot, that may more readily have the third element we're going to talk about. Okay, so in the case of politics, right? So maybe one of the things that most interests you about politics is the sort of give and take and push and pull of the negotiations and trying to get a particular piece of legislation passed or something like that, right? So there's lots of other areas, lots of other jobs, lots of other businesses that have that same sort of negotiating aspect to them, right? So if that's really what turns you on about politics, so you can, look, making a living in politics can be very, very difficult, right? And the reality is most politicians spend a large part of their time fundraising, and that may just not be something you like to do, right? So becoming a politician may not be the right path for you. But there are other places where you can get that push and pull and that negotiation thing, where that skill and that desire to be involved with it is very, very valuable. That doesn't require you to do some other things that you don't like to do at all, right? So that's the value in figuring out what you like or what you have passion for, and then breaking it down into components if you can. It'll give you a wider range of choices, or at least give you some alternative choices that may be more practical, okay? So the last component of this, so we've done, the first component is, again, knowledge, skills, and experience. The second component is something you like to do or are passionate about. Okay, so the third component is market demand. Okay, in the end, if people or businesses won't pay you for what it is you want to do, like I said a while ago, all you've got is you've got a great hobby, but you don't have a way to make money, right? So because this involves going outside of ourselves now, this may be a little bit more challenging to figure out. And this is where your ability to, or not your ability, but the need to talk to other people is going to be very important. Okay, so let's just sort of follow along my self example of loving chocolate, right? So how have I examined whether there's a demand for, a passion for chocolate in the marketplace, right? Well, so what I've done is, first of all, I've read a lot of books. I have a whole library of books on chocolate in my kitchen. That's one thing I've done. Every opportunity I have, I talk to people who are already making a living in the chocolate business. So there's a fantastic chocolate manufacturer, actually just not even 10 minutes from where I live. It's called Letterpress. And they're a bean to bar chocolate maker, meaning they start with the cacao beans and they manufacture chocolate bars. They're exquisite. They're one of the best literally in the world, right? So I've talked to, it's a husband and wife who own the company and run it. And I've talked to them about how they've done it. How did they get started? How do they keep their business going? How have they expanded it? Right. A couple of weeks ago, I had ordered some chocolates from a company in New York, and I thought there was a mistake. And so lo and behold, the owner of the company called and left me a message saying, she wanted to help me make sure the mistake got corrected. We ended up spending an hour and a half on the phone talking about the chocolate business. I got a lot of great insights from her on how I could potentially, make a living in chocolate, right? So what I would encourage you to do is seek out other people who are involved in the area that you're thinking about being involved with and talk to them. Do what are called informationals or informational interviews. I don't like the term interview because it sounds like you're asking for something that is a burden on other people. It's not a burden on other people to talk to them about what they're doing and especially what they like to do. In many ways, it's a kindness to them because they get to talk about something that's important to them. So that's why I just call them informationals, right? And you can go on LinkedIn to find people like this. Ask among your friends, do you know someone who's involved with, whatever? Would you refer me to them? Would you introduce me to them? And tell them, look, I'm not looking for a job. I'm not asking you for anything other than to tell me about your experience working in this field or working in this area or looking for a job in this area. Or maybe they're not professionally employed in it. Maybe it is a hobby for them. Tell me about your hobby doing this thing. Have you ever thought about doing it professionally? Have you looked into that? What have you found? Right? And this is what I found. People like to tell you about themselves. And I don't mean that in any egotistical way, but look, if I'm excited about something, I want to share that with other people. Hopefully it will help them out. And I think that's how most people are, right? And if someone doesn't want to share it with you, okay, so move on to the next one. No big deal, right? For whatever reason, maybe they don't have time or look, there's lots of reasons. It's almost for sure not a reflection on you. But reach out to as many people as you can find, as many people as you can connect with. If you can meet them face to face, and I know that's a challenge these days with COVID and all that kind of stuff, but if you can meet with them face to face, that's best because you have the best shot at establishing a relationship that you can build on. Okay. But if not, talk to them on the phone, do a Zoom meeting or do a Google Hangouts meeting or, whatever you've got. There's all kinds of communication tools out there today, whether it's WhatsApp and all these things. Okay. And I mean, you can communicate with anybody in the world essentially for free these days. It's just astonishing what you can do. And so don't limit yourself, just because someone maybe doesn't live in the same country you live in some ways that may be even better because they're not going to be hemmed in by assumptions that, maybe we have here in the United States that maybe in India, they don't have those assumptions there. Right? They have a completely different perspective. That's really, really valuable. So I would encourage you to look as far beyond your local area as you possibly can. And again, because communication is so easy these days, It really, gives you a tremendous ability to engage with resources far beyond where you could have even just a few years ago. Okay, so the idea behind this third one is to find out, are there people or companies who would pay me to do this thing that I really would like to do? Okay. Now, a lot of people, especially I find this especially true of people who are thinking about starting a business. So they'll say to me, no one is doing this. This has got to be a great business idea because I'm going to be the first one in. Okay. That's not necessarily true. There may be a reason why no one is doing it. And it may be because other people have tried it and there was no market for it. Oftentimes, the best business ideas are ones where there are other people doing it. They just haven't cornered the market yet, right? So even especially if you're investigating a business idea, I would caution you about kind of catching yourself in the trap of thinking, oh, nobody's doing this. Great. I've got a wide open market. I would encourage you to look more deeply. Is there a reason why no one is doing this? So reach out to people who might have tried doing it. Did you try doing this? What was your experience? How come you're not doing it now, right? And there may be a real simple reason why they're not doing it now. And that's because they couldn't make any money about it. Now, I wouldn't necessarily stop there. They may not have been able to make money. Ask them, what do you think was preventing you from making a go of this, from being able to make money? Well, X, Y, and Z. Okay. If you had done A, B, and C, do you think that might have changed the picture? I don't know. And you might say, oh, I don't want to share my ideas with them. They'll steal them. Look, don't worry about that. The best thing that could possibly happen in many cases is that other people will try and do what you're doing, and that will create excitement about it in the marketplace. And that will that will increase the likelihood that you'll be successful. Let me just give you a quick example about how this has worked in actual practice. So when Starbucks first started becoming a thing, small individual coffee shops, coffee places, everybody was thinking they're going to get wiped out because Starbucks is going to move in, take all the business, and they're going to close. That's not what happened. Starbucks would move into a location. There could be another coffee place, catty corner across the street, and they both increased. And that's because Starbucks was putting so much time, so much effort, so much money into promoting the idea of serving premium coffee, great coffee. It benefited almost all businesses that were committed to doing that. Now, for businesses that were serving a crummy product, yeah, it drove them out of business. But you know what? If an individual coffee shop that was serving really great coffee that wasn't Starbucks, just an individual place open across the street for them, probably would have shut them as well, right? But the reason a lot of these small coffee places were so successful is they were already doing what Starbucks was doing before there was such a thing as a Starbucks. And so they benefited from all of the, kind of publicity, if you will, that Starbucks brought to the marketplace, right? So, I would keep those kinds of ideas in mind, especially as you pursue a particular, the feasibility of a particular business idea. In general, if other people aren't doing it, that may not necessarily be a good sign. On the other hand, if you can find out why people aren't doing it, and you think you've got something that will overcome that problem, well, so then maybe you do have a viable idea. Okay, you do have something for which it will turn out there'll be market demand. Okay, and again, I know I'm repeating myself, but I think some of these points, deserve emphasis. Don't be afraid that people are going to steal ideas from you. rarely is that an issue. And if you're really excited about an idea and you're really intent on moving forward, you're going to do so, and your success is not going to hinge on whether someone else is trying to do it as well. It's more going to hinge on whether you're seeing all the potential and all the potential pitfalls, and are able to navigate both of those lanes, if you will, successfully. Okay. And the best way to figure that out is to be talking to other knowledgeable people who can help you identify where opportunity is, where pitfalls are. Go with the opportunity, avoid the pitfalls. Okay, because none of us is able to come up with everything on our own, right? This is a knock on him. I've never met him, but I suspect if you spoke to Elon Musk, he would tell you that a lot of the best ideas for either Tesla or SpaceX came from other people. They didn't all come from him. Maybe presumably the initial inspiration for them came from him, but he's a brilliant enough guy to realize the best thing he can do is surround himself with more brilliant people, right? Because together, that'll make the best shot at really being successful. And you can do the same thing. They don't have to be working for you, but they can have an interest in helping you, even if at some point they decide, wow, what Kevin is doing is so interesting, and I know a lot about it myself. I'm going to jump in and do it too. Great, come on, let's build it together, right? So let's take a review here, because we're coming up on our almost on an hour. So your unique value proposition has 3 parts to it. Your knowledge, skills, and experience. That's 1. You want to do a skills assessment. 2, what do you like? What do you have passion for? And you're going to have to do some soul searching, talking to friends and people who know you well, family members maybe. What do I really like to do? Thinking to yourself about that. What really turns me on? And 3, what is their market demand for? What will people or companies pay me to do? Okay, that's true of a job. It's true of a business. Either way. And in these days, a lot of jobs are really almost like being in a business, right? A lot of jobs are contractor jobs, if you will, where you're working for a company, but you're actually kind of an independent contractor. So, some of these lines have gotten kind of blurry, especially over the last couple of years. So as we, each week we talk to a new guest about how they make money, how they found this remarkable, job or started this remarkable business. I hope you'll keep those 3 things in mind, and I'm going to have them in the back of my head and work to help the guests bring them out, so that we can better understand how we might be able to replicate their success. Because in the end, that's what this is all about. That's why I'm doing this, is to help give you ideas on how you can pursue your own professional success by learning from others, rather than having to, learn from, your own mistakes. That iterative process is fine, but it's more time consuming. We can advance more quickly if we can learn from other people, especially from other people's missteps, right? I mentioned it a couple of times now. I encourage you, if you didn't see last week's episode with Jeff Morgan, Jeff is such an intelligent thinker. He speaks so well. I really encourage you, even if you have no interest in wine, although if you're a friend of mine, I can't believe that would possibly be the case. But go back to last week's episode. It's on the YouTube channel for The Way to Wow. And check out what Jeff has to say. I think you will find it very, very interesting. Feel free to leave a comment there. If you have a question, especially, leave a question, and either Jeff or I will answer it. We'll respond to it. Okay. So I just have a couple minutes left here. So I want to reiterate this. My book, The 8 Deadly Sins of Job Hunting. Now, it is targeting military people, but the reality is, even if you've never been in the military, I think you will find it very useful as if you are pursuing a job hunt, especially if you want to get a job doing something you really like at maybe a higher level than you thought might be possible for you. So if you would like a free PDF copy of my book, all you have to do is send an email to thewaytowowshow@bemmel.com. Okay, I'll put it in the notes for this episode and when it posts on YouTube. But again, thewaytowowshow@bemmel.com. Bemmel is just like my name, BEMEL.com. Send me an email saying, Kevin, would you please send me a copy of your book? Okay. And I'm going to do two things. I am going to add you to my email list if you're not already on it. Okay, so you'll learn about future broadcasts of the show and other things that I'm doing. And then I'm going to send you a link to my Google Drive where you'll be able to download a PDF copy of the book. And once you have that, now it is a step-by-step process, but you don't have to follow, you don't have to start at number 1 and go all the way through, 45 or whatever it is. You can look in the table of contents and see, well, gee, I really need help with networking, or I really need help figuring out my UVP, my unique value proposition. So, just kind of use it you can use it as a resource in that sense to shore up. Maybe you just need some help writing your resume. Okay. So I have a whole section on how to write a resume and cover letters. Okay. So, use it for what it is. Or maybe you really need a process that'll get you from the very beginning of a job hunt to finding that job. Okay. So start at the beginning and work through each task, each exercise one by one. And then if you have questions or you get stuck, shoot me an email. Okay. I'll be happy to respond and hopefully I can help you get unstuck. Right. So, gosh, we're coming up here on 59 minutes. I guess it shouldn't be a surprise that a rabbi can talk for an hour without stopping. Although, I never think of myself as being quite that talkative. But anyway, I thank you very, very much for joining me. If you have any questions, all of the this broadcast will automatically upload to LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And so if you're on any of those social media platforms, feel free to leave a question if something came up during the broadcast and I didn't answer it, and I'll be happy to answer it. And next week, gosh, who's my guest next week? I think my guest is Kira Storajev, a long standing friend of mine, a really dynamic businesswoman. Her most recent venture is into the cryptocurrency world. Kira was telling me a little bit about that. I'm really looking forward to talking to her about that. So I think that's next week. That'll be January, I want to say, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it's January 5th, next Wednesday, January 5th. She'll be my guest, I'm pretty sure. And if not, it'll be somebody else who's equally as interesting. And I hope you'll tune in. And thank you so much for watching. Have a great week. Have a happy new year. Should be healthy, successful for you. And together, we will hopefully help you find your way to wow. Thanks, folks. There you go.
So can you talk?
Oops. Oh, there. Hold on. I muted you a little while ago because somebody was talking in the background. I'm trying to unmute you so I can hear you. I don't know why it's not unmuting. Can you unmute yourself on your end? Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. It's saying your network bandwidth is low.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, for some reason, my internet isn't as strong today as it normally is. So, hopefully it worked.
Yeah, you're moving so much. It's like it's not in other words, your facial expressions and your mouth aren't coordinating with, you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
It's very
yeah,
jumbled.
yeah, they're out of
Yeah,
sync.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's all totally out of sync, but
It's the limits of the technology. There's just nothing, unfortunately, there's nothing I can do about that.
yeah, well,
Um,
I'm sure
you know,
it's expensive to get high quality stuff like that because I see it happening on shows, professional shows I watch. I see
well,
it.
right. So, I mean, one of the things I need to
It'll
do,
get out of sync, or some guests they're interviewing will be jumping all over the place. So then they
yeah,
have to do something to it. But
yeah. I mean, I'm not going to go
these are
back and re-edit the show.
those are huge stations that have a lot of money.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, one of the things I want to do is get a broader bandwidth internet service, which we have available here now. Look, there's only so many hours in the day and so many days in the week, so I just haven't done that yet. Rome wasn't built in a day, and so each week I'm adding another element
make
to it.
money off of doing this, or is it just?
I mean, this is only the second week I've done it, so.
I thought you were doing. What were you doing before?
Well, so before I was doing a pre-recorded show.
Oh.
Yeah, so now I'm doing it live. This is, I mean, it's part of the same project, but it's a different format. So yeah.
You do have a list of people you send out to?
Yeah. 1,400 people.
Yeah.
I sent the email to 1,400 people. At least 70 of them saw it before the show started because I got an email from my email, whatever it's called, letting me know how many people had opened the email. I actually got a call from someone I'd known for many, many years that I had lost touch with when he got the email. He called to see how I was doing. So, that's where business will come from, is connecting with people.
Yeah. Well, because one person logged in and then went off.
Yeah, that was